What's up, y'all? One Piece One Life here, and guys, I'm not gonna lie, I am incredibly tired. It is midnight, I have class in the morning, and I just got back from a concert. And not to say that the concert was disappointing, but it could have used a bit of work. But we here because I'm dedicated to the grind, and also because the last few chapters have had a myriad of different crazy things to talk about, especially because we very well may have seen what the ceiling of not just the current era or the modern era is, but the entirety of the One Piece history in general. So if you're ready for the batch review of 1122 to 1124, well, let's dive in. Wait, before we dive in, like the video, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, and share it around with all your friends who love the series. Let's get it going. So the first few panels, we just have the world kind of reacting to the latest thing that Vegapunk said, and the pirates are really excited, like, oh, we have the closest claim to the One Piece, let's go. While the Marines are like, why would Vegapunk even say that? What's the point? Then you have Kobe's goofy self conveniently remembering that he's supposed to be Luffy's rival, talking about some, Luffy, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to stop your dream. And I just want to ask, who does Kobe think he's joking? No one is taking Pao seriously, because to think that he has even the slightest chance of besting Luffy is laughable, at least at this stage. And it's tragic because I do like Kobe. In my sequel story, I even made him an admiral. But you see, the thing is, I knew that he's nowhere near that now, which is why I had to give him a crazy training arc. Hey, all I know is if Oda wants me to believe that Kobe can actually do this, he better reveal that he has conquerors or something, or else he's just going to continue being fodder. Then we check in with the Cross Guild, and Buggy is continuing his, well, for lack of a better term, Messiah farce. Nah, but one thing you have to give Buggy is that he's charismatic as hell, because all of these pirates are probably stronger than him, most of them, and yet he's really getting them to work for him. What do you mean when they're all like, oh, Captain Buggy, this is gonna be your world and we're gonna make sure it's your world, and he's just like, you idiots, it's our world. I swear this guy's legend and tale is gonna eclipse 80% of the guys who are actually stronger than him. Then of course behind the scenes you have Crocodile and Mihawk in the meeting room, and they're just telling Buggy, sit down. Though I have to say, it doesn't look like Crocodile is gonna beat Buggy to a pulp right now. And I'm wondering, could that mean that we're finally seeing a glimmer of Crocodile's old dreams come back, and that all be brought up by Buggy's plea of wanting to go and find the One Piece, and that is the catalyst for Crocodile's dream to resurface? I think that would be good storytelling. Well, either way, now that the Cross Guild is in the race, they're probably gonna need to strategize and come up with ways to, actually be able to get to Laugh Tale before the others. And, I just so happen to have a video where I discuss how that could happen, so make sure to check this one out. Then meanwhile, on the Blackbeard pirate ship, you have Devon and Augur carrying Caribou back, and we basically predicted it, everybody predicted it, which is just that Blackbeard says, nah, bring Caribou to me, he can tell me the information he has, and if it's useless, I'll kill him. Essentially meaning Blackbeard is gonna know the location of two ancient weapons. So back on Egghead, just as we're about to hear Vegapunk talk about Joy Boy, Workery rams into the Iron Giant and knocks it off course. So with Zoro's group, even though they're falling, it still looks like, Nezjuro has reformed and is going after them. And all the other Gorosei are all convening now, well, besides Mars since he was flung away, so it looks like everybody's still in dire straits. But then we get a very interesting part of the chapter for lore purposes, which is a conversation between Luffy and the Iron G. So the Iron G, just like Zunisha, knows that Luffy literally isn't the same Joy Boy, but is just, reminiscent of him because of the Drums of Liberation and all that. And he's saying that it's taking him back to nostalgic days just by hearing that drum beat. Before telling Luffy that he hopes Joy Boy can forgive him because he failed to make Joy Boy the king. So with this, we can start piecing a lot of the Void Century together. So the way I see it is that Joy Boy, being the prototype Luffy and the first pirate, obviously had no desire to actually be the king of anything and rule over anything, but the faction that he was with, he had just such a natural aura that drew all the people close to him, kind of like Luffy does, and they wanted to make him king. So his side's want of making him the king is what eventually led to the war between them and the 20 allied nations that would later form the world government. So we now know why Zunisha and the Iron G, and probably other members of Joy Boy's crew if we meet them, why they apologized to Joy Boy. But that still begs the question of why Joy Boy was apologizing to the Mermaid Princess. With this, it seems like the Mermaid Princess isn't actually a member of Joy Boy's crew, since, you would think that she would be the one apologizing to Joy Boy for not making him king as she was. So the relationship there is different. And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe lovers? Honestly, I think that history may be repeating itself and that like we're kind of in a loop and it's cyclical. And because I think there's a lot of parallels, I feel like if Luffy is the Joy Boy of today and then there's a Joy Boy of the past, I feel like there would have to be connection between the Mermaid Princess of the past and the current Mermaid Princess, Shirahoshi. So I think that Joy Boy promised the Mermaid Princess that she and all her people will be able to move and live on the surface with everybody else, and that was the war that he was fighting for. And the reason he's apologizing is because he wasn't able to do that, because as we know now, obviously, Fishman and Mer people racism has continued on till this day. And I think this makes sense, especially with the whole inherited wealth aspect, where it makes a lot of sense for prototype versions of people. Their kind of wills are carried down throughout the generations. And then right as that happens, we get probably the most insane thing I've seen in One Piece. So as Luffy tells Emmet his full governmental, Emmet says, "Thank you for letting me hear the drums of liberation one last time," before untying a knot in his body. Now I know what you're thinking. It's just a knot. Who cares? You should care, because this is not a regular knot. This knot contains Joy Boy's Conqueror's Haki. The RNG unties it, and the force of the Conqueror's Haki that explodes is literally stronger than everybody else's that we've seen in the series, and it knocks out every single Marine present, including the Vice Admirals. But it doesn't just stop there, because it also affects the Gorosei. Not only does it force the Gorosei out of their magical demon transformations and back to their old man selves, but it also forces all of them back to Marijoa. Well, at least Warcury, Peter, and Nostro. And side note, the way that Mars is waiting for them, just like, damn, got y'all too, huh? Like, I don't know, I just found that hilarious. But it doesn't stop there, because best of all for us, we see Lord Emu himself trembling in fear, clutching himself in pain and being like, "Joy Boy." And then we just get the end of the chapter, which is showing that, of course, with everybody safely landing, they can all head out. And meanwhile, as the Iron Giant is fading into the background, we see a flashback of the Iron Giant talking to Joy Boy, and Joy Boy saying, "Yo, I'm gonna store my haki in this knot and store with you so that part of me can live into the future with you." So there's multiple things to talk about here. The first thing is, how is this even possible? I mean, how is he tying up his haki in a knot? That doesn't make sense, does it? Until you remember that it makes sense that it would be possible, because we were introduced to the concept of knots carrying things with the wind knots in Witheria. For those who don't remember, the Witherians, which is the place where Nami was sent to for the time skip, they have this piece of technology where they figured out they could store wind inside of a knot, and when they untie the knot, the wind is released. And it seems like it's just the same principles being used again, so maybe they even rediscovered this technology after it had been kind of lost for a while. Hey, all I know is refrigerated haki is insane. Now let's talk about the fact that Emu felt it when the Gorosei were hit by Joy Boy's haki, because this seems to add a lot of credence to the idea that the Gorosei are manifestations created by Emu's devil fruit. I mean, it would make sense, because you would be able to have the Gorosei literally just being monsters and not devil fruit users themselves, and yet the reason why they're still affected by haki and all of that would make sense, because they're the results of a devil fruit. It's just Emu's fruit. And Emu of all people would be very familiar with Joy Boy's haki, because this subtly confirms, though I guess we already knew, that Emu was there during the Void Century and he knows how Joy Boy's haki feels. And it's kind of almost giving him PTSD. It's crazy. A year from now, we're going to be able to hear Joy Boy speak in the anime. In fact, fairly soon, we should be hearing Emu speak in the anime. Also, I put out a whole theory about the Iron Giant being parallels to Usopp, but why is he acting like Chopper? Nah, this really was a wild chapter, and I'm guessing that this is the big event that Oda's editor was talking about a few weeks back when he said that Egghead still has a twist that's left. And wow, what a twist it was. Loki may be one of my favorites of Egghead. Conversely, chapter 1123, I didn't care for it that much. First of all, the title is The Void Fortnite, and Oda just knows that he's playing games with us, because he knows we want to see the Void Century. He's just... But basically, the entire chapter is just dedicated to explaining how Vegapunk was able to pre-record the message despite the fact that the whole ocean rising and everything that happened like that had not happened yet. Spoiler alert, he knew that York was the traitor. Or I guess more accurately, he did know at some point that York was the traitor. Oh, and the cover story, it's just those kids that were stoning Yamato and then Dendro put in the bag, they're all now eating together. It's cool. Moving on. So at the start of the chapter, we see the aftermath of the last chapter where indeed all the Marines, even the Vice Admirals, are all taken out. And as they're sailing away, Luffy's just calling out to the Iron G and thanking him for his service. It really does seem like the Iron Giants is offline. So, man, RIP to the GOAT. Because now let's talk about it. The Iron Giant was the MVP of Egghead. The amount of times that he saved them, the amount of times that he's come in clutch, everything that he's done, wow. I think that the Iron Giant has had more important role and spoken more than Chopper did in this arc. Maybe even Nami. So as everything settles down, we see Sanji going up to the Stella body, just asking, man, why'd you have to go and do all these outrageous things? So as far as it looks like, the Stella is indeed dead. Like, it's not a cop-out type of thing. But then we get a flashback explaining, well, everything. So about 2 weeks ago from the current story, you have Stella, Pythagoras, and Shaka. They are the ones who deduced through fictional science that part of the Mother Flame was being stolen, and they knew that the three of them were the only ones with alibis. Side note, Stella goofy as hell, cause why he kept blaming Lilith like that? Nah, cause he's really crazy. He kept being like, oh, we gotta investigate the others, especially Lilith. Oh, you mean when Lilith, I mean whoever it may have been. I'm like, dog, free Lilith, please. And then Pythagoras reveals that he found out that it's York, and you just have Vegapunk being, oh really? My bad, Lilith. Like, what's wrong with him? But anyways, yeah, Pythagoras figured out that it was York, and they were able to reconstruct the message she sent to the Gorosei and heard that she was talking to, Marijoa. So 6 days ago, when Lelouch happened, Vegapunk theorizes, which means that Oda is telling us, that the government is using an ancient weapon and requires the Mother Flame to power it. But Stella says that there's no point in capturing York now because, what's it gonna do? They're all gonna die anyway. And I guess that gives more context as to why Shaka was telling Dragon at the start of the arc, yo, I think I'm gonna die. Because he was. And then that is when he recorded the message and set it off to go when he dies. And then we come to, Stella's group's solution to the issue. So they encounter a problem where they don't want the fact that they know York is the traitor to be potentially leaked to York or to the others because, they want to keep it within themselves. So their solution is to erase their own memories. And I just gotta ask, do you guys count this as part of the amnesia or no? Because I know it's different because they took their own agency and they were doing it of their own volition. So I get that. It makes sense. I'm just saying that the trope of conveniently forgetting something and it being like an actual plot point it's being used again. And the last time that happened, people weren't happy, so I'm just trying to see what's up. And then right before they did, Stella wrote himself a note explaining everything that he had learned, which I'm like, wait, doesn't that negate the point of, erasing their memories? And then when Sanji, Atlas, Stella, and Frankie were all in that sky vehicle thing, Sanji was actually like, yo, I can take you, let's go. And Vegapunk was the one who was like, no, please, you need to let me stay here and you have to let me die so that I can fulfill what I want to do. But then he hopes that they're the ones to find the One Piece, which, that's heartwarming. Now there's two things from the flashback section that are actually important to mention. The first thing they mention is that they have to protect that, they have this dome thing and they're making the artificial clouds from it. The artificial clouds that Egghead sits on, stating that it's going to be important for the future of the world, which means that this is essentially a potential solution for a lot of people or a lot of islands to be saved when the tides start rising. And then the second thing is that Stella's group keeps talking about what death even means for them, considering that, they have the giant Punk Records brain in a vat just floating around, which to me, I take it as long as that thing is still alive, Vegapunk's consciousness in some way is still alive. All the bodies could die, and as long as that thing's still there, they're good. But with that, the giant ship pulls off with the Sunny in tow, and we're finally closing out the Egghead arc officially and going to Elbaf. And it's literally within my prediction range, as I said that we would be out by 11:25. So I still had some chapters to spare. Overall, I think I would genuinely give Egghead a solid 9 out of 10. Genuinely, I don't know how others are ranking it, but I really loved this arc. There was a lot of things going on, from all the fun fight scenes to the way that we were just cutting around the world and seeing a bunch of different action, the Gorosei reveals, Iron Giant's contributions, and of course, Kuma's backstory. I think the only things holding it back for me was the whole midsection mystery whodunit thing. That's just not my cup of tea personally. And then the whole Zoro versus Lucci being dragged out as much as it was, that to me that just wasn't necessary. But overall, I loved it, and it may even have to be my top 5. But of course, we gotta move on to newer and better things as we start the Elbaf arc in chapter 1124. On the cover, we got Yamato protecting some random woman from bandits. She kind of looks like Osome, Sanji's Wanobe, but obviously it can't be her since she's in the flower capital. So starting off, we actually check in on the World Economic Journal's blimp. So of course we got Morgans and Vivi arguing as usual, and Wapple's just kind of in the back like, hey Vivi, maybe let's not irritate the person who's currently harboring us. But of course they're arguing because Morgans has all this info that he just wants to dump on the world, especially the story about how Luffy killed Vegapunk, even though Vivi knows that's not true. Side note, if we're getting a new cover story after Yamato's, I would actually really like it for it to be the adventures of Morgans and Wapple, where like they travel around and Wapple is just being useless and maybe even making situations worse, but then Morgans is able to spin it in such a way to make Wapple a hero. And then Morgans comments on the tides rising and saying that he's in a blimp, so he'll be fine regardless, which now that I think about it, I should have added that to the foreshadowing for the Rising Tides video that I made a couple weeks back. I just forgot that this was seen before, but fair enough, Morgans is safe. To the 3 Morgans fans out there, you don't gotta worry. So as they continue arguing, we cut back to Egghead, where we see Sentomaru in a small rowboat just thrown away, and he's sad because the man who took him in like a father figure and raised him is dead. It's tragic, and we see all the Marines still out cold except for one. So as the phone rings, Kizaru picks it up, and at the end of the line, it's Akainu of all people. And Akainu is straight to the point. He's like, hey, what's going on? What's the status of the mission? How is York? How's the power station? What is happening to Saturn? Is he okay? You better not be slacking off, Kizaru. But I really love what happens next, because we get Kizaru evading all of it to ask Sakazuki a very important question. Have you ever had to kill your best friend before? As we see that, we see a myriad of Kizaru flashbacks. We see the moment that him and Vegapunk first met when he was being assigned to Vegapunk. We see him helping out in the construction alongside, Kuma and Sentomaru. Obviously that little family moment with the 2 of them and Bonnie and Vegapunk and everybody there, that was really his family. Before having to see his own point of view of seeing his best friend lasered by his own hand and dropped to the ground. But then we get something that people have been waiting for, not just this arc, but the entire show, which is Kizaru showing emotions. Real, true emotions. This man calls Akainu a damn ingrate and tells him that if he has time to waste doubting him, he may as well come and see for himself. And all I can say is, he's no longer the weed man. Man, Kizaru's standing on business all day. He said, oh, so you think I'm a joker? Bet. Pull up and see what's going on. And I get it from an audience perspective what Oda's trying to do, where he's like, listen, I know you all think from what I've shown, obviously, that Kizaru is just a laid back, unserious person, but it's meant to show us that Kizaru and Black Ascension, all the admirals, the Marines, they're more morally gray. They have more things going on than just them being on the justice system. And it's actually very powerful in showing how deep the world government's propaganda runs, because even though it's being pit against his own desires, he's still just a cog in the machine at the end of the day. But now the fact that he said all that and then Akainu could only come back with, I'm sorry, brother. Nah, Akainu has no shame, bruh. Though interestingly, this may actually point to the fact that Akainu later down the line may have his own kind of revelation like this. Meanwhile, on the Sunny, you have Jinbei, Zoro, and Frankie all talking, and they're just like, I haven't seen Luffy this dejected before, and obviously it's because we failed the mission, which was to rescue Vegapunk, which is only interesting to note because Jinbei is literally the person who saved Luffy from depression after the Paramount War. Frankie was like, we had a lot to go through, but then Zoro says that Luffy is pathetic to be getting so down just because some old man has died, citing that he's an emperor now. And Zoro, we need to have some words, because pray tell, where were you? Because as I remember, you were stalling Base Lucci when we needed you. Genuinely, if Zoro hadn't spent the past 6.5 months being the king of Huff, maybe he could have done something to actually change this outcome. There could have at least been an attempt. And since he wanted to talk about some old man, Who was Yasu, huh, Zoro? What about Yasu? Cause you were willing to crash out for him, but you knew him collectively for like 7 hours. Luffy knew Vegapunk for at least like 2 days, plus Vegapunk fed him. And of course, here go the Zoro fans gonna talk about some, oh, but he was stalling Nezuko, we have to give him. No, he wasn't. They clashed for 2 seconds and then both got knocked back. That's not Zoro stalling off Nezuko. And meanwhile, Sanji is up because he's the one that Vegapunk entrusted this to. All I'm saying is I win again. Bro becomes a Yonko first mate and forgets how to act. What's wrong with him? But for real though, all of this is out of character for Zoro. Zoro knows that he's part of a group of people who will literally ride and die for people that they just met. That's what the Straw Hat's entire MO is, especially Luffy. Nah, yeah, let's move on before this thing gets me too heated. So then we cut to the giant ship where Lilith is waking up and the other Straw Hats are around her. When they tell her that she was the only one that they could save, she, feels sad for like all of 2 seconds at the passing of the rest of her, and then immediately feels hungry. So they direct her to the fruits table where Luffy is so depressed that he's eaten only 5 bunches of grapes. Not 5 grapes, 5 bunches of grapes. And these are giant sized grapes, remember. But then Lilith says not to actually feel sad because, to put it simply, everyone's still alive, meaning Luffy never broke his promise. So the interesting thing is, when she wakes up, she clicks her receiver and is like, oh yeah, I heard like everything that happened. You guys don't have to tell me, which I'm just like, heard from who? Because all the people who could tell you are right there. I mean, I'm not really sure what to think here. On one hand, she is a Vegapunk, so she could just be saying like, because I'm still alive, you didn't fail. But at the same time, with that whole brain still being active and the fact that it's just Vegapunk's consciousness, maybe it's like the 6 paths of pain where it could be just put into different bodies. Basically, all I'm saying is there may be a chance for all of them to still be alive. And then of course we have the standard arc end of Kampai, everybody cheering together as we head on to the next arc. And during that, we see Robin talk about meeting Saul, which means, hey, already maybe Oda's setting up for one of the predictions we made in last week's video to come true. And then as we get to Elbaf itself, we see on Warland Elbaf a silhouette of somebody saying, come on then. Which is interesting because I think it's implying that the person knows that the Straw Hats are on their way. Now I made a short about this, but basically Oda's back to his silhouette tactics, though we do have some clues on who it may be. Now we gotta track back the logic for this one, but I think there's a reason to believe that it could be Golden Lion Shiki. See, the silhouette seems to be wearing an Amagasa hat, one of the hats that the people of Wano makes, Tama makes them, and Ace made one for Little Lords Jr. You know who else wore an Amagasa hat? The mysterious character that we see drinking with Crocus in one of the cover stories. And many people believe that this person right here is Shiki, given the fact that, in the colored version, the hairstyle and color seems very reminiscent of Shiki. Plus, Shiki and Crocus are part of the same era, so I mean, I could see it. As for why Shiki would be on Egghead, I don't know, that's for Oda to explain. But y'all tell me, what was your favorite part of this bunch of chapters? A lot happened, but we're finally officially out of Egghead. Make sure to let me know all of your thoughts and all your predictions for what's to come in the comments. That is going to be the end of the video, y'all, but please, before we go, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this, and share it around with all your friends who love One Piece, or anime and manga in general. Remember, I'm trying to build a community, but I need your help to do it. Now that's going to be all from me. I'll catch you on the next one, and always remember, One Piece, one life. Now we have a new silhouette, and y'all know what that means. Time for me to push the Scopper Gaban agenda. That silhouette is Scopper. Cause see, I feel like at this point, if I don't do it, no one's gonna keep it alive. So I just gotta keep saying it till it happens. Oda, you're on a clock to bring this man back.